Good afternoon, Paul, and good afternoon, everyone. Sky FF, Game Week 1 preview. Here we go. How has your week been, Paul?
Yeah, it's been good. Thanks, Fergi. Just tying up fantasy loose ends and all different formats, including Sky as well. How about you? How was the holiday?
Holiday was good. Spent a lot of it on a sun lounger with my phone in hand, tinkering away. I think I've got myself into this kind of thing in Sky. You know, we all have it, don't we? Where we start off all right, very sensible, and then we kind of go down all these rabbit holes, don't we? And then kind of end up with things. But at the moment, I haven't got Salah in my draft, but after all the, furore on Twitter this morning about how bonkers I am, and actually realizing that he does get obviously extra points being a midfielder and this, that, and the other. He's probably going to squeeze his way in. I don't want to spill my season, but at the moment, I haven't got Kane and Haaland in my draft. I'm pretty thing on the value of having a stronger team. Now we haven't got man of the matches, but we will talk about that in a bit. Firstly, before we kick off, I'm sure you've seen, but you can join Fantasy Football Hub now with 50% off. And also, if you play FPL and you don't win your FPL mini league, you can get your money back. And by the way, this will include for Sky Game Week 1 team reveals from myself and 3 former winners: Dan Cox, Liam Dorian, and also the current reigning champion Mark Wisdish. If you want to see their Game Week 1 teams towards the end of the week, sign up to the hub now. Join in the description below. And also for members as well, Paul and I are also creating a very new short form podcast, which you should have out later this week. I mean, why wouldn't you join the hub? Good afternoon in the chat. Who do we have? We have Geo Boys. 4 days to go. I still don't have Salah. I know the feeling. Ian Parron is in. Welcome, Ian. Mark Williamson. Dan Cox says, can't wait for Fergie to justify his no Salah thoughts. Kaiser Sose, hi all. Mark Daniels is in. Ben McCrum, getting impatient now. I just want the season to start. Absolutely. FPL Spartans. Ammon Tatler. Dan. Ollie Poole. He put in a really good question. Is he allowed to watch this pod as part of his job? Ollie is obviously now the new editor at the hub. I think you should use your lunchtime, Ollie. I'm obviously only joking. Ryan G, Joseph Robinson, Martin Beasley, Johnny White, Darren Surgeon, first time ever live watching. Usually listen to the podcast. Welcome, Darren. Great to have you on. Shane White, Brownie, Hotshot, and everyone else. Thank you so much all for joining us. Paul, what are we going to be talking about today?
Yeah, so I've got a couple of things to go through. I've got 10 differentials who are on my shortlist, all under 10% owned. I have considered them all, and they've all been in at least one of my drafts when I've been pulling together my team. And also 3 quick hit takeaways from pre-season that people may or may not be aware of that I thought worth mentioning as well.
Lovely. I bet you a couple of differentials are going to be in my team. I think. Let's start off with differentials, Paul.
Yeah, so I've got the two Spurs centre halves to begin with. So Romero's only in 6% of teams, and Dyer's in 8% of teams. I think I said this in the last pod. I think Romero is one of, if not the best value player in this game this season at his price, and I thought that 7.8% was a bit cheap. It's a good chance he'll pick pass in. He picks up the odd tackle bonus as well. He does look like a threat. Maybe that's not at set pieces. Maybe that's not come through and they can attack and outputs as such yet. But it's 7.8 million. With Spurs' fixtures in particular, I know that away to Chelsea in game week 2 is more tricky, but 5 of the remaining 6 opening games are favourable, and you expect a lot of possession for Spurs in those games as well. I was surprised that, do you know, like in FPL we talk about the Twitter template, and that is backed up this season with percentage ownership, but in Sky it doesn't seem to be the case, because I think like 90% of teams that I see on Twitter has Romero in defence, and to only be in 6.24% of teams is very surprising in my opinion.
I think the Dyer's underpriced as well, 8.4. Because if as we've talked about numerous times, we fully expect Spurs to improve again defensively this year. Conte likes to keep the ball. Dyer's got attacking threat. All right, you can have an opinion on whether you think he's a brilliant, defender or not. I don't think he is really. And that comes as a Spurs fan, but putting all that aside, I think 8.4 million for a very likely top 4 finishing team, nailed on to start, playing at the centre, is going to be knocking about at the back. I think 8.4 is crazy cheap. But at the moment, I've got both of them in my draft because they're just so cheap.
Well, Dyer plays at the heart of the three. So
Exactly.
if anyone's more nailed on for passing, it's him, and perhaps that comes with the additional cost. But yeah, I think both of those are a really good value.
The problem I've got, we'll talk structurally now, because this to me is the killer part of the whole draft, whether you have a fifth defender or not. But having Dyer 8.4, I think he's far and away the best option across all brackets. Obviously, excluding Romero, and maybe excluding a couple of other really obvious ones, but he's definitely one of them. And do you go for that fifth spot? Because this the problem with Sky is you can't have the 5-4-1, can you? Which every time I try and get to a team, I'm like, I've got it. You realise you can't go 5-4-1, and if you have the 5 at the back, you have to have 2 forwards. And that's what I'm finding really tough, is whether to go for that fifth defender or not. But we'll talk about that more in a bit, I suspect.
Yeah. So up next on differential list, the 2 Manchester City centre halves. So got Ake, who's currently in less than 1% of teams, so 0.78% at 8 million. It looks like from pre-season, Stones, I don't think, had been vaccinated and hence didn't travel with Man City to America. So he's played limited, if not any, pre-season games. So Ake looks like he'll start there with Laporte being out until September. 8 million. Guaranteed passing bonus. I think he's definitely worth consideration. And then Diaz at 10.6 million, I think he is. So a whole 0.4 million cheaper than Cancelo if you're looking to, if you need to eke out that extra, those extra funds to boost elsewhere. Diaz is only in 7% of teams as well. So yeah, again, I was surprised by both of those, particularly Ake. I know that the longevity perhaps of his position in the team's maybe more under threat, but I definitely like both of those options as well.
In terms of Ake, strategically now this season, now we've got the extra transfers, do you think a lot more people will go for these kind of shorter term players like Ake?
Well, I would have thought so, but 0.78% suggests maybe not. I was really surprised, possibly more than anybody else on this list.
What are your thoughts on that kind of strategy now? Is these players were never sure. Remember, like Matip last season, and players like that where you're not sure they're going to play or not. Do you think they're worth a punt? If they hit, you're laughing because 1, you get the points, but 2, you save a transfer. But obviously, you may have to move one off one. Do you think that? I know you mentioned last week potentially about making 5 transfers like 4 or 5 weeks in as part of a reshuffle. Is that part of your strategy with Ake, for example?
Yeah, I think that I would go for maybe 1 or 2 of those types of players max, where you know that you might need to transfer for a couple of weeks if they get the hit. Remember, like Tsimikas last season played the first 3 games because we knew Robertson was out, and I think he was like 6.7 or 6.8 million for a Liverpool defender. It was playing the first 3 games, and he picked up some attacking returns as well as the clean sheets as well. And I think this just could be another example really like that. I mean, we're going to talk about a few other players that fit this mold as well, and maybe having 1 or 2 of those max, so that if worse comes to worse, that it's 2 transfers that you're blocking out for these. It all depends on your strategy as well. Talk about the rotating big strikers, and I've got an alternative strategy that you could potentially use to that as well. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on.
So another player I can guess is in this mould is William Saliba. Do you want to talk to us about him?
So a lot of questions about Saliba. I remember, was it 2 seasons ago or 3 seasons ago, where it was like 5 point something, and everyone had them in their drafts, but Arsenal played again on the opening game of the season, and he didn't feature, and then he went off to Marseille on loan after that. But yeah, 7.4 million. I think he's a really good option to start the game with. So someone posed the question, is it a trap? It might have been Ollie Poole. I know that he did ask a question about Saliba. Someone said, is it a trap? It's less of a trap knowing that you'll see him starting the season, so it's only 1 transfer to get him out. Whereas throughout the season, if you're making these decisions, it's 1 transfer to bring the player in. And then if it doesn't work out after 2 or 3 games, it's 1 transfer to take back out. So you're using 2 transfers, whereas just now you're only using one, and you know that he's going to start because you'll see the Arsenal Crystal Palace lineup. There's also a lot of players around that price bracket that I think you could move to. I see Newcastle carrying a lot more possession this season. So maybe someone like Botman, who's got good attacking threat as well. And you'll be able to see how Newcastle line up for the first 2 or 3 games. Then if Saliba did lose his place, you'd be able to move on there. Fofana's another one. He's on that differentials list as well at 1.79%. And he might be, when it's either if he moved to Chelsea or you see that he is settled after the transfer speculation or not, 2 or 3 games in. So both of those are around about the same price as Saliba. I think they're both at 7.5. So as long as you had the 0.1 to make the move, there is definitely options to move on. So almost like de-risking it slightly.
Botman, 7.5. Yeah. Good price, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't say for sure that they'll keep a lot of possession, but we will be able to see over the 2 or 3 games that Newcastle start with how they settle and how solid they're looking at the back as well.
Okay. You've also got a few others on this list, Paul.
Yeah, so Koulibaly, Chelsea. I see him just stepping in to where Rudiger was playing before. I know a lot's been said about Chelsea in pre-season. If there's one fixture that you want to get your confidence back, it would be against Everton, surely. Chelsea will have a lot of possession as well. So, and Chelsea have a few upcoming captaincy or days in which a Chelsea player could be the standout captain option, all of which appear on the first match day of a set of fixtures as well. So not an easy move on to the point. So perhaps starting with Koulibaly, 9.3 million, I think is good value for someone that's going to regularly pick up passing bonus and throw in the clean sheets for Chelsea. And then I've got 3 other players on the list. Rashford, I think if you told me a year ago that Rashford would be an 8.1 million midfielder, that I'd be scrambling to try and get him on my team. I guess it all depends what happens with Ronaldo as well. They look a lot more fluid without Ronaldo in the team. But 8.1 million for a starting Manchester United forward and get the additional points from being a midfielder, classified as a midfielder. I could see him making his way into more than the 4.56% of teams that he currently is in. And then another 2, Martinelli from Arsenal, 8 million midfielder. Arsenal's looked great in pre-season, really attacking, really fluid, 3.37%. Like a lot of people will be on Jesus, and it almost nullifies his impact. So I always think of it like you doubling up on Arsenal. Is it really doubling up on Arsenal when the 2/3 of the game is going to have Jesus in their team come the start of the season anyway? And then the last player, he wasn't actually, I didn't even realise he was this cheap, but Jamie Vardy always starts the season really well. 10.2 million. Perhaps, like I know a lot of people's talk about moving on to Haaland on match day 2, but even like if you didn't want Jesus long term, moving on to Vardy in match day 2 and even captain at home to Brentford, I think could be a really good option. He's in less than 4% of teams just now.
Lovely stuff. Yeah, I agree on lots of them. It's we kind of just before we came on, you said that you think that the game was going to be quite template, and I said I don't think it's going to be. And just looking at some of the ownership levels of some of those players, because a lot of them are, a few you've mentioned, like Botman potentially haven't been, talked about a lot, but a lot of the others are quite visible to kind of engaged fantasy managers. But some of those percentages there, some in the 0 point somethings, I think it's going to be quite an open start. And the reason is, I think it's because there's just so many amazing options that
I think the extra transfers gives different variation of strategies as well.
I don't know. I changed my team twice after you talked about oh, look at that, what I can do. Oh, this is exciting. But yeah, I think
in fairness, these aren't off the wall kind of differentials. Like you have to be different. These are all players that have that. Some of which are in my team currently, and all of which have probably Vardy is the only one on that list that's never made it into my draft, and it's not. And that would be because I'd be using I would potentially use a transfer to bring in Vardy on match day too. That's not my current plan, but I had thought about it.
Lovely stuff, Paul. Yeah, some real gems in there, and I gotta say, I said it a few times in pre-season. This is the most excited I've been ahead of a new fantasy season for many years, many years. We've always had a massive break, haven't we? A couple of months completely off football. Obviously, aside from the Lionesses, many congratulations, obviously, to the Lionesses yesterday. But other than that, really football wise, there's been nothing. Obviously, we've had all the disruption with COVID, which has had knock-on effect of Euros and things like that. But I think the fact that we've certain players have moved around the league, and the fact that Man City and Liverpool are going to look a bit different this year to what we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years. Brand new players in the league, new managers, top managers. I'm so excited, and I'm also excited kind of looking at my team and looking at Sky and looking at all the games, because I think there's quite a lot of variation. FPL is definitely definitely a template, right, as there always is. But on all these other games, I can see quite a lot, and obviously we're going to talk a bit about premium, because that's something I'm really interested in around how many we have. But next, Paul, you just wanted to talk a bit about a couple of pre-season takeaways.
Yeah, so 3 quick hits, and I purposely didn't mention any of the players on the differentials pick, even if they fit this category as well. So first one's on Wolves. So Wolves have got like a really nice set of opening fixtures, and I know that Neves perhaps irked a few people last season after getting injured when people were doing the transfers to bring him in for that Leeds game when everyone. When all the Leeds players that people owned were injured at the start of the game as well. But with Jimenez out injured now for the first couple of months of the season, Neves looks like he's on penalties. He took the penalty in Wolves' friend at the weekend. If you add that to the kind fixtures, the passing potential, the tackling bonus potential as well, I think it's 7.9 million. He could be a really good steal. I did see him on a couple of Twitter kind of content creators providing their teams on Twitter. But I think that just heightens his appeal now with Jimenez being out. 7.9 million, I think that you could definitely do worse than picking Neves. The second thing was an observation on the Newcastle Bilbao game. So I don't know if this was like when Shelvey wasn't playing, but Bruno Gomes seemed to be playing a lot deeper. So he wasn't in the attacking third very often, if at all. That's not to put people off picking him, in Sky, that he's a great option for picking up the tackle bonus as well. I just don't know that I'd be expecting as much attacking outlet from him as perhaps he did towards the end of last season.
Is he still in your draft after that for passing and tackles?
He's never been in my Sky draft. He's been on my short list of players that I'll definitely consider, but I don't have him in my draft currently. And then the third player that I was going to mention is Joe Matip. So it looked like Konate went off with what could potentially be a serious knee injury yesterday. I don't know the extent of it in Liverpool's friendly. If you're looking again to save budget, like I was mentioning about the Diaz over Cancelo argument, Matip's only 10.1. So if it looked like he was nailed on for all the games, you've got a saving of 0.6 over Van Dijk, 0.4 over Trent, and 0.2 over Robertson. I think those values are right. It's roughly that anyway. But he would then come into my thoughts based on being a nailed on Liverpool defender. And the cheapest one at that.
He's got a really good attacking threat, Matip, as well. I mean, he's incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah.
Lovely stuff there, Paul. Okay, something I wanted to talk about, and it's basically spawned out of me drafting some ideas and teams last night, and looking at points based on the new scrapping of the man of the match rule, but also looking at positional changes for Salah and Son and kind of what that means. And obviously on screen now, I've got the 4 kind of main premium attacking protagonists, you can call them. Haaland, we obviously don't know from last year. Salah scored 301 Sky points last year. If you take away his man of the match points and add the extra points he would have got per goal, he would have ended up -7, so still 293, massive, right? You can't argue with that. Son would have actually gained because he scored more goals than he got man of the match points. We would have ended up on 271. The interesting one for me was Kane would have lost 21 points because obviously he's staying as a forward now, right? So he would have gone down from 241 to just 220 points. And I can't help but look at players like Cancelo, Van Dijk, and all these players and just wonder whether, Kane and Haaland now are going to have to double return in a game to be really worthwhile over these premium defenders, judging, based on, previous performances, right? So, if someone like Van Dijk, for example, they got a clean sheet and he had passing bonus as an absolute minimum, 10 points there. I think for Kane to get that now, that is a goal plus max shots bonus. And that is obviously, so captained, it would obviously work out the same. And these premium defenders are a lot less. Structurally, it's a bit easier as well. So that's my thought, is basically a forward is going to have to double return. And if they don't return at all, which obviously happens, they get nothing. Whereas obviously if Van Dijk or Cancelo, for example, don't keep a clean sheet, but they do get bonus, then they'll also outscore Kane, etc. as well. So it's got me thinking a little bit around my structure. And I did do a team last night with no Salah in. I think I tweeted last night or this morning saying, I can go without Salah. Now, obviously looking at the numbers there, it doesn't massively impact him. And I did kind of forget the captaincy a week Monday. I think if you could have gone against Salah with other players, I would probably have left it. But that captaincy a week Monday against Palace, he's gonna. I just can't talk about not enjoying a game of football, not having Salah on Monday night football, right? Is just it's just not going to be enjoyable. So I think I've changed my mind now. So apologies for all those I said I'm not going without Salah, because I wasn't, but I have since thought about it and remedied my ways. And obviously I expect Kane to start off well, home to Southampton, home to Wolves, in game weeks 1 and 3. The only spot I'm scared of in the opening few games from not having a premium forward is Man City home to Bournemouth. It's a week Saturday. Scott Parker came out yesterday and basically said, we are nowhere near ready for the new season. We've lost 8 players. We have no defence. And there's me thinking about trying to go without someone like Haaland, right? So kind of gone full circle now, more for protection than anything. But then I do then wonder whether if I just started off with a base team which included Salah and Haaland, for example, whether after the 4 or 5 weeks, when it all settles down a little bit, could maybe go without them. Home to Bournemouth is absolutely plum. It's probably the plum fixture of the season. We can see how things, kind of settle down and then sort of structures out. But my B team, I'm not going to have Salah or Kane. I'm not going to have anyone. I'm just going to go,
the
full
value
Liverpool defence and Cancelo, and then just go for people like maybe Wilson up front, who I think is going to have a great season. In my second team, it's a bit of an experiment, just to see what happens. But I think the lack of man of the matches, I think, significantly changes the whole face of the game for me personally. Because normally, if Kane gets a couple of goals, you can add on those extra 6 points. Even if Kane gets a couple of goals now, I don't think it's as big a gap as it would be to someone like Van Dijk or Cancelo. So sorry it's a bit of a splurge there, but just a bit of a brain dump of my thinking. What are your thoughts on the premiums and on the captaincy and things like that?
Yeah, I know that your thought process is to get 5 at the back on that basis, to get the value players, like the big hitting defenders at the back. if you were more interested in some of the midfielders, you could do a 4-4-2 formation or a 4-5 or a 4-5-1 formation, and like move Salah onto Haaland and then back to Salah. I guess you've got that option. There's been a lot of talk about if you can't fit all the premium strikers in that you want, about rotating the premium strikers. I had a thought though. What about rotating the big hitting defenders? Like, if we look at examples last season of where we used 2 transfers to bring in a player from a lesser team, get punished by them not returning anything, and then using your second transfer to take them out. If you were using a transfer to bring in Van Dijk for 2 games and then transfer him onto Cancelo for 2 games and then transfer him back to Van Dijk, you can follow exactly the same pattern as what you do with your premium strikers, but with defenders as well. So there's definitely options, and that way you could then factor in getting your Chelsea defender that would cover off a couple of the captaincies, where I think Chelsea have better, like where a Chelsea asset would be the best captain on those days. Whereas you would, depending on your formation, you might not be able to come down to the Chelsea player to then go back up.
Does the lack of man of matches now draw you at all towards? I know, before you say, I know you're an ownership player, right? But speaking purely objectively now, Van Dijk versus Salah away to Fulham. Where's your heart?
I think I'd still captain Salah.
You think he scored more points than Van Dijk?
I think he has. I think it hurts you more if he scores more points and you don't captain him.
Do you think he scores more?
I think it's riskier.
Do you think he scores more points than Van Dijk
in that game?
Yeah,
I think he scores more points. Okay. Yeah, but I appreciate it's difficult to call, and they both end the season on similar points totals, in my opinion. What I would say, on the man of the match point of view, it puts me off players like Wilson more than anything else. If I was to say that what's my one takeaway from the man of the match changes, is it puts me off the mid-price forwards more.
I'm surprised
because those are the types of games where you often pick those players up for a captaincy and a nice run of fixtures and the captaincy, and then you double it. Like, if in a game where Wilson scores 1 goal, I don't have the stats. I should have the stats to back this up, but I don't. I didn't know where we're going to go down. I didn't know where we're going to go down this rabbit hole. But if Wilson scores in a game, I think there's a high percentage chance he gets man of the match. He'll have lower odds to score than your Salahs and your Kanes, etc. would be, and hence why it's relative in that sense. But because I would captain him on the single game days, I think there's a good chance he picks up man of the match if he scores. Therefore, you're getting a mini haul out of a player, whereas you're getting less of a haul out of a type of player like that now.
Well, I think a goal and shot bonus for Wilson, which I think he's going to have a fabulous season. I wouldn't be surprised if he got between 15 and 20 league goals this season, personally, obviously if he stays fit, right? But that for me for 7.9, 9 or 10, when he's hitting those reasonably regular 9 or 10 sort of pointers for 7.9 million forward, I think he's really decent. And
I think out of that bracket, Wilson's definitely the best. So I'm not. I wouldn't. That's not where I'm going with this. But it's, if I was bringing in a player that perhaps had a single captaincy day and a nice run of fixtures, like a Mitrovic or anyone along those. I'm not saying I'll never do it this season, but I think the lack of man of the match dampens the appeal more than what it did before.
I think in my B team, I'm going to play 5-3-2 and go and put Wilson and Mitrovic up front and just kind of rely on them to just get regular shots bonus. They're both on penalties. They're both absolutely nailed. They'll both score a fair few goals. But yeah,
how early are you predicting the Wilson injury?
Well, that's just what it is, isn't it? I'll have to work it out. But I do think that first game home to Forest could be a very good game for him. Massive back 5, and then we'll see. But yeah, I think the B team, I think it'd be good. I'm definitely doing it this year because, like I say, because this man of the match change. Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Paul. Let's have a quick catch up with the chat. Sam D. Taylor says, "What is everybody's thoughts on Sancho?" I think he's I think it's a bit more expensive, isn't he, than maybe Rashford and Martinelli. You guess you'd be kind of measuring against. Are you any interest in Sancho, Paul?
I can't remember what price he is, but I do remember thinking exactly what you said there, that he's a little bit more expensive than both of those players you mentioned, like Rashford, and he's 8.8. It's just a little bit too expensive for me.
Yeah, I agree. Mark Williamson, how does overall volume of shot bonus compare to defender pass bonus? That's something we're gonna have to research that market ahead of we've got it. We just haven't prepared it, so we'll have to have a look at that. FPL Sparta says Rashford, no way. Hot Shot said, I don't think there'll be as many passing bonus because of the 5 subs and more players will be rested. That is an interesting point.
Your passing bonus tends to come from your centre halves, or at least that's where that's where you plan it from. And I don't think that the 5 subs rules will affect the centre halves as much as they would do with fullbacks on high pressing teams like Spurs. Like there's so many threads on how when Conte implemented that system at Inter that he often hooked the wing backs early because of the amount of ground that they were expected to cover. Whereas I couldn't see like Romero or Dyer coming off in situations like that unless it's like injury.
Agree with that. Okay, let's do the first game week preview of the season. Game week 1, first game, Friday the 5th of August. I'll be at FF Fest on Friday. I'm going to make the effort and get down to London, so I'm going to watch the game down there, which will be good. Crystal Palace versus Arsenal. Jesus is going to be quite fairly, I think, a very popular pick indeed. I think a couple of weeks ago when we started talking about it, I was a little bit unsure, but I think it's probably fair to say, 1, he's absolutely nailed, and 2, he and Arsenal have been absolute lightning in pre-season, and I think it'd be a brave person to go against him. Do you think there's an argument for Saliba, Zinchenko, someone like that?
I think I was with you. I think that I was a little bit cooler on him a couple of weeks ago, but his form in pre-season, Arteta's comments, he looks really lively. And then you look at Arsenal's fixtures, it's not like
spanking.
I had mentioned about potentially moving on to Vardy, but just Leicester at home, Bournemouth away, Fulham at home, all on match day 1s, and so it's not even like you hop off and hop back on. You kind of, I went and checked the Crystal Palace Arsenal game. Palace won that fixture at Palace 3-0 last year, because I was going to have a look and see if the centre halves of Arsenal picked up passing or not, expecting them not to, because I know that Palace hold a lot of the ball, but I couldn't push those stats to fit my narrative because both of them did hit passing bonus. So I can't come and say that Arsenal are unlikely to get passing, because it's not necessarily true. Although Saliba and Gabriel have struggled for passing bonus in the pre-season friendlies. I think they've been cut about 40 passes, same with Zinchenko as well. And if you looked at the heat map of Zinchenko against Sevilla, he wasn't in the attacking third that much as well. I think weighing up all of that, I think Jesus is the best option. I wouldn't go against the double up with Saka or Martinelli to complement that, because most people's going to be on Jesus, so your profit from the game is going to be very little if they do trounce them.
Yeah, I'm not massively keen on the factual fixture itself. I think away to Palace I personally think it's going to be a tough game. I think it'd be a close game. I think it may be kind of a 1-1, or Arsenal may pip it sort of 2-1. It's to fix that after that for me, which is exciting. And I mentioned Dyer 8.4. I think it's brilliant value. I think Jesus at 9.6. He has the potential to be a 10.5, 11 million forward there, right? If you think that he's 2 million less than Haaland and Kane, but those fixtures, he's a class player playing for a team, really good team now in form. I think at 9.6, he's actually turned into a bit of a no-brainer now, haven't he? Whereas I've definitely changed my mind, yeah. Saturday the 6th, we see the teams for Fulham and Liverpool, Spurs, Southampton, Newcastle, Forest, Leeds, Wolves, Bournemouth, Villa, and we finish off with Everton and Chelsea. Salah captain?
Yeah, Salah captain. There's definitely an argument to be made for Son or Kane based on Southampton. We've seen Spurs tear apart Southampton's high line on a few occasions before. So, definitely make arguments for each of those. I think Salah's a standout captain. I thought he looked lively in the Community Shield against City as well. I thought he looked, and he always starts the season well and gets. Those of us that gets disappointed with Salah, particularly in Sky, those patches of not being involved tend to happen. Like it looks from burnout towards the end of the season as opposed to the start.
I think in the last, I want to say 4 seasons, definitely 3. He's got a minimum of, I think it's 2 returns in each game, hasn't he? He had a goal and assist against Norwich. He got a hat trick against Leeds, and I know he did well, didn't he, in the opening day last season as well. And he's facing a newly promoted team again. This is why, I was like,
Fulham's only got. Am I right in thinking Fulham's only got 2 registered centre halves just now as well?
Oh, I'm not sure about that.
Ream and Adebayo. So they're trying to sign Yannick Vestergaard from Leicester.
Oh, okay.
I think they've only got 2 fit centre halves.
Okay.
You only need 2, but
FF Thinker Sean Thorpe in the chat. Shot bonus was hit 622 times last season, passing 848. I forgot to say, actually, if you want to look at all the stats from last season, Sean has written a brilliant article on the hub. Go to fantasyfootballhub.co.uk. Look in the Sky section there, and Sean has written brilliant stuff there. So, yeah, shot bonus was 622, passing 848. Yeah, interesting stuff there. Thank you for that, Sean. Sunday the 7th, United versus Brighton, Leicester versus Brentford, and West Ham Man City. Now, I just can't get so overly excited about that Man City game, but I know that Haaland is going to be massively captained, and more so because I think if Spurs played the following Saturday, I'm not sure we'd see as much high ownership for Haaland, but it's that home to Bournemouth match next Saturday. This is what is kind of scaring me a little bit. Is that game, but Captain Haaland on Sunday, Captain Cancelo, what's your thinking?
Definitely make arguments for both of them. Callan's the safest option. Safest to protect you from a haul, I think.
Yeah, it's just the following week. I honestly don't think I would go with him if it wasn't for that home to Bournemouth the following week. But it is, if that game plays out as it potentially should, if Bournemouth don't have a defence and one of the best forwards in the world is playing one of the best teams in the world against them, he could run absolute riot, couldn't he? Which is obviously, you don't want to be 40 points behind, based off one game, but it is.
I think Vardy or Maddison for a B team captaincy, because Leicester always start the season. I know they're in a bit of disarray at the moment, and a few of their players are unsettled. I thought Tielemans was out of contract, or is that he's out of contract next season? They thought he was going to make a move because he's still there. He came on yesterday. Maybe he's got another season, and they were expecting him to go this summer because of that to get a fee. But Maddison or Vardy could do really well.
Agree. Okay, let's have a look at some questions. We've probably answered a lot of these, I would guess, as we're going through. Good question from Lee Giles. Do you have any transfers booked in already? Any thoughts there, Paul? Are you setting your team up for the first few game weeks, or have you got something up your sleeve?
I'm not looking beyond the first 3 game weeks, but at present, I'm planning on not making a transfer and sitting with what I've got. I'm pretty happy with my team. All pending team news at the end of the week. But I could see 1 or 2 moves like the hokey cokey with Kane or Son to Haaland being really popular, and I can get on board with why that looks like a good tactic, and I can understand why people would be doing that.
I don't think I have yet. It's a hard one because I've definitely not nailed down any sort of draft yet. But I don't think I'll be slotting in transfers. I don't think. Like I say, Kane, Haaland, maybe, but other than that, probably not. Tom Hartnell, would you consider starting with Callum Wilson? Is 5-3-2 too much of a risk? Yeah, I like it. I like it, Tom. It's a bit unconventional. I personally like it. But that means if you are going for 5-3-2, and this was the issue I had with having Wilson, if you're going for Jesus, which you probably are, means you can't easily get then to Haaland or Kane if you wanted them, especially Haaland in game week 2. So that was the issue with having Callum Wilson. You probably, I wouldn't say have to have Jesus, but assuming you're going for him, you can't then have Haaland or Kane unless you shift an expensive defender, which you're probably not going to do. So, any thoughts here, Paul, on that? Anything else?
I'll just echo what you said there.
Okay. We've talked about Saliba. Emroy asks about Saliba, as does Liam. Liam Dorian also asks about Fred. We haven't mentioned Fred. It was a bit of a joke last year, Paul. You gave me a bit of a ribbon about that. Yeah. We did all right.
Yeah, I don't know if this is to reignite that conversation or not. I don't even know what price he is. We're 7.6. There you go. Yeah,
that's not bad. I think that's good because I think he plays. Stop laughing. Fred.
The thing is, like, Liam's won the game before, and I've not. So if he's been serious, then
7.6 is superb.
There's all
passes,
a valid
tackles,
reason to listen to.
Threat. What are you laughing at? I honestly think he's decent. 7.6 is well
because I don't know. I think Liam set this exact conversation up by asking that, and we've fallen right into his hands.
FPL Spartan has just said Fred got sent off in the friendly. Lol. I'm not sure. Right. I'll bet you. Here we go. I'll bet you both. What would be a reasonable return for Fred after 4 game weeks? Average of 5 points a game? 6?
What, you think he'll get 5 points a game? Yeah. You think he'll get 20 points?
Absolutely. Okay. After 4 game weeks.
Easy, because I was going to go less than that. So yeah. 5 points. 5 points a game.
Average. Okay. Obviously average.
Okay. If he gets 20 points over the first 4 games.
Deal. There we go. Yeah. Ollie Paul says, shout out to all the brilliant Sky content we've got. Final team reveals from Dan, Liam, and reigning champ Mark Wisdish to come this week. Definitely. And he does listening to this count as work for me, Fergie. Owen is starting with a West Ham Bournemouth player for the 24th of October. Too far in the future to contemplate. I think so. 24th of October, I think, is... I don't know what game week that is. That's like game week, what? 12, 14, something like that, maybe? Martin Beasy says, I'd rather pick Fred West. I'm not sure about that, Martin. West Ham or Bournemouth, Paul? Wait and see.
Yeah, I've not looked after 4 game weeks. I don't think so.
The only, I say the only Bournemouth player. I think that's unfair, but Sam Billen at 7.1 looks good. The only problem is, I think he started on the bench yesterday. In the when they
Philip Billing.
Who did I say?
Sam Billing, I think.
Oh, he's the cricketer. Phil Billing. 7.1 million, which I think is superb. I think he got 10 goals, 10 assists last season. Really, really tall, good in the air, passes and tackles, potential.
Yeah,
but
I was actually. Yeah, I had a look at him for a Telegraph game. I think he was playing in the number 10 role towards the end of last season. Scored 10 goals, 10 assists. Right. And if he doesn't play in that position, then he's more likely to pick up tackling bonus. So,
Tony says, "Fred, you're having a laugh." Fred's taking a bit of stick here, Paul. I'm not happy about it. 7.6 million. That's good value. Ian Parrin, with seemingly plenty of options, both over 10 million and below. Who are the 3 mid-priced defender, midfielders, and strikers we all need to fill? Mid-priced defenders, midfielders, and strikers. I'm going to chuck in Eric Dyer, Thiago Silva, strikers. Obviously, Jesus. He's 9.6.
9.5. 9.5.
Can't really think of midfield off the top of my head. There's obviously players like Saka and Mount. Madison apparently got stretched off yesterday.
No,
I saw.
I think that's a rumor.
Oh, is it?
It's not actually true. Yeah.
Okay. Havertz 9.2.
Someone posted.
Rodri 9.1 passes and tackles. Assuming he plays every game, still scored 203 points last season. Rodri, awesome for 9.1, isn't it? Yeah. Any more to chuck in there, Paul?
If I was going in that bracket in midfield, if I think who has the potential to score the most points over the season, I'd pick Mount. If I think who's going to be the best value, I know I talked about him being more defensive, but because he's at the lower end of that price bracket, I'd probably go Bruno Guimaraes.
Bro, yeah, 8.3. I do like Odegaard as well. 8.2, 148 points. He's their captain now. He really makes them tick, don't he? I really like him. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I just had some. Sorry, I was looking at my thing because I just had an urgent message. Just had some really exciting news from the hub, which I don't think I'm going to be allowed to share on here. But really, really excited. Sorry, completely threw me there, mate.
If the question about West Ham, Bournemouth earlier on, if you look at so that was in October that you're looking to do the transfer for. On Sunday, the 11th of September, West Ham play Newcastle at home. So that would be a good opportunity to bring in Bowen then if you wanted a West Ham asset. Yeah. So instead of starting with one, I would bring in one, gain an extra game down the line somewhere.
It's the important questions. Dan Cox, who is going to win Love Island? Surely Ekin Su, and it's not sure if it's David or David.
Davide. Yeah.
Davide.
Yeah, I've not looked at the bookies odds, so I don't know who's the favourites, but they're the most entertaining couple on it anyway.
And please can you both congratulate the Lionesses. Absolutely well done indeed. Liam says, opened a can of worms with Fred. Yeah, you did, you absolute swine. Grey Wolf Dinner says, Leon Bailey for 7.4 could be a bargain. If he hits the ground running, he's looked pretty sensational in pre-season, hasn't he? Very good.
They've got good fixtures. They've got good fixtures as well. I mean, when you look at the potential of Bailey at 7.4 against Fred's 7.6, I think there's only one winner there, Fergi.
All right. We'll see. We've answered most of the other questions, actually. Josh says I got 4 Arsenal in my current draft. Zinchenko, Saliba, Saka and Jesus. Am I going mad? I just think that Gameweek 1 fixture for me is not very attractive. Yeah. That's the only problem with it.
Agreed. But then if you're playing the value over the first 5 or 6 game weeks, I think that all 4 of them could do really well over those kind of opening 6 to 8 fixtures for Arsenal.
George Thomas says thoughts on Chelsea defenders.
I like Koulibaly.
9.4,
9.3, yeah.
9.3 ahead of Silva, just because he's younger.
Yeah. Silva's similar, isn't he? Like 9.2, I think. It's 0.1 either side of him. I can't remember if it was 0.1 cheaper.
Silva's 9.2, yeah.
Both good options, I think.
Best Forest asset from Dale Turner.
There's only 3 Forest assets that I would entertain. I think Dean Henderson in goals. Brennan Johnson's probably the star, 7.2 on penalties, scored in the last game. Another one would be O'Brien that they just signed from Huddersfield, 6.6 million. Defensive midfielder, should pick up tackling bonus, good box-to-box player. I think he'll suit Forest's style under Cooper as well.
Yates as well was
injured.
No, I think he's back.
He came back and then got injured.
Oh, you're injured again? Oh,
yeah. I think so. I think he went off. I think he went off after 20 or 25 minutes, unless they've had another friendly since he played. I think he came back and then got injured.
Just on a question from JMC70, who's your cheapest great enabler? There is a player for Fulham, so people have been talking about midfielder Palhinha, 6.6 million. Apparently, I haven't got the stat in front of me, but
27 games, 3 goals, and averages 3 tackles per game. That was in the Portuguese top 5.
Yes, but yeah, for 6.6 million, I don't think you probably expect much attacking returns, but tackling wise could be quite Norgardy in a Fulham team that is going to be on the back foot. You'd expect for most of the time, but 6.6. He's probably the cheapest player I've seen. Which has to be
him O'Brien from Nottingham Forest I mentioned there, and Gibbs White has been playing in a front three in all of Wolves' pre-season friendlies. So again, he could be an option because Wolves' fixtures are really good.
Oh look, how much is Gibbs? Oh, he's
6.6 as well. I think.
Blimey, okay, plenty of options there then. Plenty of options.
Yeah, and there's sideways move, like, so because there's so many options, there's sideways moves if these players don't work out as well. You've got Kamara from Villa, who's 6.8. I know it's a little bit more expensive, but like that bracket has a few options, so you can, if you do start with one and it doesn't work out, you can move to another.
Let's look at the ownerships of all these players we're talking about. They're just so low. Obviously, I didn't expect Gibbs White to be high, right? But nearly every player we talked about, like Rodri, look at his numbers towards the end of last season: 10, 8, 11, 5, 8, 10. He's only in 5% of teams. I really think that because there's no overhaul, because no first overhaul, I don't think we're going to have a template, because I think the template firmly morphs after the first overhaul, because everyone's seen everyone. We know who the enablers are. This is the thing, is we don't know who the enablers are yet, do we? The right ones, I mean. So I think it's wide open. Honestly, I think it's incredibly wide open. João Cancelo, 20% ownership. Van Dijk, less than 20% ownership. I think it's mental. Thiago Silva, less than 5% ownership. These are players who are like 60, 70, 80, 90% owned, obviously in the top 1K, right? But crazy. Anyway, FF Thinker says Rodri averaged over a bonus point per game last season. Obviously, Phillips is there now, so he has some competitions. So you probably get a rest, but yeah, lovely stuff. That's it for us for this week. Thank you so much, Paul. Again, brilliant stuff. Thank you so much to everyone who has watched and listened. Your continued support is much appreciated, as usual. Really enjoyed this episode. Really enjoyed doing the game week preview this week. In terms of this week now, we're not planning on doing another pod. It's purely because we were trying to think of what we could talk about, but not much is going to change between now and game week 1. So we may do one, but I don't think so.
If anyone's interested in multi-format play, so if they play Telegraph and they play Dream Team, or even one or two of the other games, we're going to cover off a tiny bit of Sky in that in our new pod as well, where we're combining our scores across the 4 formats in a season-long bet against each other and see who can prevail as a king of fantasy between the two of us.
We will. I think we're going to be recording our first one of that tomorrow now, aren't we? We were going to do it today, but we're going to do it tomorrow now. So it'll just be a 15 or 20 minute sort of, sound bite. I think what we'll probably do by the sound of it is put the first one out for everyone to listen to, see if you enjoy it. But, we want to give Hub members as much value as possibly can. So that will be for Hub members only from game week 2 onwards. Just a reminder, 50% off Fantasy Football Hub membership now, the best fantasy site around. If you play FPL and you don't win your mini league, you get your money back. If you haven't used our My Team tool for FPL, get on it. It is the best fantasy tool I've ever seen. It's absolutely incredible. You will also get, as a Hub member, 3 former champions Game Week 1 team reveals. Dan Cox, Liam Dorian, and reigning champion Mark Wisdish will reveal their Game Week 1 teams exclusively for Fantasy Football Hub members. Link is in the description below. Make sure you sign up. If you like what you watched, please press like. It'd be much, much appreciated. Remember to subscribe in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast versions and leave some comments. We'll likely be back now next week. I think next Monday, looking back, game week 1. We may do something. Could do a spaces potentially instead of a sort of a pod. If something, love the phrase emergency pod. If something happens, if say Salah breaks down in training on Thursday, we all have to reevaluate. But at the moment, don't see an awful lot changing before Friday. So we'll see. I'm going to be doing some spaces, some FPL spaces and Sky ones. But if not, we'll see you back next Monday. Until then, happy tinkering. Have a fantastic weekend and goodbye for now.